All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. One of the cool things about doing the show for as long as I have been is that I often hear from local artists that I'm not necessarily familiar with. People reach out and say, "Hey, here's my music. You know, are you interested in having me on the show?" And a lot of the time, I mean, I get introduced to some really cool stuff that way, and I think it's kind of telling how many people in Winnipeg are making music that just like even despite my best efforts to keep track of everyone and sort of be aware of everyone in the scene, it seems like every day, every week, every month, there's like 30 new people popping up. And some of them have been making music for a long time too. It's not necessarily that they just started, but there's so many artists in Winnipeg. And so one of my favorite things about doing this show is that I get introduced to a lot of them and get to can't talk today, familiarize myself with their music. So the guest on this show is someone who is new to me for the most part. I mean, I definitely seen the name on social media, but I hadn't actually heard your stuff until we started talking. And I think the best way to start this off is if you want to introduce yourself and give a bit of background about what you do as an artist.
No problem. It's KNG JMZ or King James, however you want to say it. It's both accurate. Background on me. I've been in the music scene for a bit, or taking part in music for a while, since high school or maybe even junior high, just writing rhymes and stuff like that. Even if you want to talk about the four elements of hip hop, I've been doing graffiti art for a while. Stopped there. It's basically a lot though, but I started taking it seriously just well, in the 2000s. Life events happen, obviously. Then I picked it up again last year, beginning of last year. So before all of this, I used to do talent buying for a small company. I
Oh,
wrote
cool.
hip hop publications for a national publication, and I also was a radio host for a little bit on well, they're not here anymore. On Streets FM.
Right.
So
Yeah. I remember that
I
station. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I used to do that for a little bit, but yeah, I'm just doing this right now just because it's basically like a hobby also of mine. So it's something that I like to do. It's something that really aspires to me, and then here I am now, I guess.
Well, and you've been, like you said, you've been involved in some way or another for a long time in the hip hop
Hmm.
community locally. What was the incentive to do it now? I mean, we're coming out of this like really awkward time for everyone, where no one is knowing whether shows are going to happen or any of the kind of traditional ways of making music and presenting music to audiences. That's been gone because of the pandemic. So
Yeah.
why choose now? It seems like a difficult time for anyone to get back into making music.
Now, why now? I'm not sure actually, but I had a friend. Well, I had a friend basically who was supposed to do this, take part in the music aspect with me, but unfortunately, he passed on. Um, I don't know. For some reason, I guess subconsciously, now was the time. Like, you know what I mean? I had a bunch of material, I had some people that I already work with, and then I don't know, I just made the transition. Well, it seems to be the nature of the era also, like basically try to do what you love, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So just do what you love, just put it out, stop waiting for things to be perfect, just do what you do and put it out there. Basically, that's where I'm at. That there
Well,
was no rhyme or reason really. I just decide to do what I do, basically.
I think you're right about that, though. We're living in an era where that is encouraged, that kind of DIY punk rock aesthetic of just you have an idea, you should just go out and do it. You want to try something, you want to play in a band, make a record, you want to, do art, you want to write, you want any of these things. Like people are encouraged, and especially because we've had this kind of enforced time off where people have not been able to do the things they typically would. I mean, I think there's definitely like this idea of, like fuck it, I'm gonna just go out and do this on my own because no one else it can be really relied on to give me that boost, right?
Exactly. Well, it's your dream, it's your ambition, it's your hobby. Might as well take it to the next level. Stop waiting. Stop putting it to the wayside, to the back burner. Just do what you do what you love, and then put it out there. Push it. Believe in yourself. Like
Yeah.
that's the biggest hallmark that I live by, especially now, and I try to enforce that with my peers and enforce that with my own children. So
Yeah, well, I mean, it's definitely like I said, a good attitude to have. I think that's where I'm coming from too with this podcast. Is just I want to do this, and now I'm 700 and whatever episodes in, and still doing it because it's something you're passionate about. You're gonna find a way to make it happen, regardless of the situation around you.
exactly.
So
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you're coming now in this era, and I mean that is one aspect of this era for sure. But another aspect of it is that because the bar has been lowered as far as access to being able to make music, right? Everyone can make a record in their bedroom and put it up on SoundCloud or Bandcamp or even I get it on Spotify and all these things fairly simply. So I mean, how difficult is it to get your name out there and get your music out there when you're in this kind of sea of everyone and their dog has made a bunch of records, and it's like how do you get yourself heard among everyone else who's trying to do the exact same thing?
I'm not gonna lie, it's extremely difficult. Like as you said, the market is saturated. I think every genre is saturated right
Yeah,
now. And like you said, like there's different ways where people could just uh create music. Like right now there's apps on the phones, like you know what I mean, there's stuff you could do straight from the phone and it sounds just as high quality as anything within the studio, which is crazy to
it's
me.
ridiculous. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. um I guess the only thing I could say in this aspect is just being true to yourself, like making sure that well, being real with yourself also, because if you create something and it's not really vibing on a level that you're supposed to be, or well, I'll give you an example. Like I recorded something just the other day. Like I have a home studio. Well, I'll call it a home studio. It's basically my closet, basically. But 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 I have a good mic. I have a Mac, and then I have some tools that I just connect to the Mac, and it comes out crisp. But in my mind, it sounds like something in my mind, if you know what I mean. And then it came out horrible. It didn't come out anything like how
right.
I wanted to come out. But I have the ability to gauge that and be like, okay, let's scrap this for now, come back to it later. You know what I mean? Come back to it later. Maybe there's places I can improve. Maybe I could get somebody to sing the hook. Maybe I just need a little bit better, I guess, kick, better hi-hat or something like that. It's more of a process for me. And then it's more of a, like I'm putting some of myself within the music. Like I want it to be perfect, basically. Obviously, it's not going to be perfect, but perfect to the level where I'm cool with it, and I'll put it out. Like I have that ability to do that. So I think I set myself apart in that regard. Like I'm real with myself. If I think I put something on the recording that's trash, I'll be real with my, oh shit, that's trash. I'm not even gonna put that out, if you know what I mean. Or I'll go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not trying to sound like anybody. Like I do have influences, but I'm not trying to sound like anybody at all. I do believe I have my own sound, and I'm trying to perfect my sound. I'm trying to get better and better and better. Like if somebody who has been listening to me from when I first dropped, I think it was KNG JMZ or Crazy Cash. Like still, though, those are pretty quality, but I've been getting better each time I've been putting something out. So
Well, that's what you
that's
want. That's what you
where
want to do, right? I mean, you hope you don't want to be
exactly,
regressing and going backwards and getting worse. I mean,
exactly.
yeah. But I do want to talk about your sound actually in a second. But just to go back to what you said, I think that ability to self edit is an important thing because. Again, with this bar being lowered for access to release music, I think a lot of people are just releasing everything, and that's cool.
Yeah,
And there's a benefit. There's definitely benefits to that. But on the other hand, you could be putting out stuff that just isn't at the quality that you wanted. So knowing when to go back and say sort of like I know I need to fix this or I need to change this here, I think that's a skill a lot of people not they don't have it. People are I think too anxious to release things and too anxious to get it up just get it online and get it out there that they might miss some of those the subtleties of actually taking some
yeah.
time with it.
I get anxiety too. Like I do want to put it out there, but then I'm like I'll listen to it. Like I have a pair of headphones. I forget what they're called. They're basically studio headphones. Sometimes I'm hearing stuff that maybe the average person won't hear,
Right.
but then I have to edit that out. No, I can't just release it like that. But also, like one thing I will say, it's almost like music isn't evolving. If you know what I mean, like I hear a lot of, I'm not going to name names or anything like that, but a lot of the time I hear like a lot of stuff sounds the same. Like you put out a track, and then the other track sounds the same. It sounds exactly the same. Like this is where's the evolution? Like for me, I'm just trying to evolve each track and make each track versatile to the best of my ability to what I think is true from my nature, basically. So that's how I set myself apart, basically.
What do you think is the reason for that lack of evolution? I mean, I know what you're saying for sure, but like what's causing that?
I think it's like the industry, because the industry could bank off of a certain sound. And if they could find some, well, it's not like they're trying to find people doing the same thing. They're not really trying to do that, but I think it's like almost psychological where people hear this, okay, for me to make it, I need to sound like this, or I
Yeah.
need to do that. I need to do it this way. It's almost like a cookie cutter type of thing. When back in the day, like you had like the Michael Jacksons, the Princes, Queen, like stuff like that, and they were doing stuff differently all the time, and they were making evolution within the music. Bob Marley, all of that stuff. I still listen to that type of stuff, and I'm still trying to get better within my own sound. So I'm never, well, I won't say I won't ever get there, but even if I do get there, like how can I go a step further? How can I, like, what can I do differently that's true to myself, that's basically within my character to put on the single, on the track, on the album, or whatever, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I
So,
guess it's like a matter of that kind of being genuine to what you want to represent as an artist and as a person, and then also trying to balance that with wanting to make a sound that's going to appeal to a wide group of people, right? Because there's definitely people who are being incredibly true to themselves and real to who they are, and they're
mm,
releasing great stuff, but the audience size isn't necessarily probably where they want it to be, and some people are fine with that,
yeah.
right? Some people are making music that is just meant for a small audience, and so yeah, but there's certainly benefit to being kind of an honest representation of what you
Mhm.
want to put out there.
Well, exactly what you said. Like everything has a niche now nowadays, right? Everything
Sure,
has a
yeah,
market nowadays. So it's all about finding that market and tapping into that market. No matter what type of music you make, I'm pretty sure like you could find people who will actually resonate with you and your sound no matter what you make. Like I'm not
yeah,
going to
definitely.
take that away from anybody, but again, you do want to have like a genuine aspect of self and like evolve the culture. So, yeah.
Well, and I think that hip hop is a genre of music too, where that's almost overly important, right? Is having that genuine representation of who you are, because people, I mean, I say this all the time on the podcast, but I think people in Winnipeg, first of all, have really good bullshit detectors and can tell when someone is not being themselves. But I think hip hop fans in general too, that's such a big part of the culture is having what you're saying being believable, right? And other genres of music too. I mean, country music's another one where that's a big thing, where being that genuine person that you're portraying yourself as is going to mean something to the audience, to people listening.
Yeah, you could hear it in the music exactly, and anything you put down has to come from like the heart. For me, it has to come from the heart. It has to be established with the audience from the heart, and then if you don't have your heart in the music, you could really tell if it's there or not. If you know what I mean, you could hear it.
Yeah, yeah, and then people are going
Mm.
to write it off if it doesn't seem like that heart is there. They're going to just discerning listeners, I guess. Some people will be fine with it, just if it's got a good beat and they can dance
Yeah,
to it. They're all right with it, right? But yeah, people who actually are really paying attention to lyrics and production and
yeah.
things like that, they're gonna hear that and move on to the next thing.
See, and that's the thing too. I kind of pride myself on the lyrics as well, because I come from an era where I grew up with the East Coast, West Coast, and the South. Like I went through each
Sure.
era, and just to name, let's say Wu Tang, Mob Deep, uh, Death Row Records, Outkast, like they all had lyrics
Yeah.
within their craft. And right now, I think it's kind of lacking. Like right now, it's focused on the beat because really, it's the beat that gets the heart chakra going, if you want to say
Sure.
that.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
but but yeah, like the lyrics are like, well, I'm not going to criticize anybody. Just for me, like the lyrics are lacking for me personally. So I try
Yeah.
to make sure that there's a message in my shit, and then try to motivate people within my sound.
Well, and I agree with you. I mean, I'm pretty sure I'm from the same era. Like I'm 40 now, and I mean, all the hip hop I grew up listening to is basically those artists you're mentioning. I mean, I listen to Wu Tang
Mhm.
pretty much every day still. You know, but and like
Yeah.
that, and it's because the lyrics are a huge part of why I'm interested in the type of rap that I listen to. But I'm always uncomfortable, not uncomfortable, but nervous and anxious when it's someone who approaches me who's like, an 18-year-old rapper from Winnipeg. They want to be on the show, and I just kind of like, and there's some good ones for like I don't mean to
There's
shit
some
on
good
everyone.
ones.
There's some great ones, but when as soon as I see that you're young and you're making hip hop, and I'm just had this like feeling that it's going to be something that I just don't get, and I think it's because
Mhm.
of the focus on something other than just lyricism, and that, like as a listener, that's what I want to hear out of rap
Yeah.
music is I want to hear lyrics, and I want to hear something that is more than just like a hook and then some mumbling, and I feel bad
Yeah.
criticizing it because I'm too old. I mean, that's my kids are the age to listen to that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, and it's not made for me. But I mean, you know what I mean, right? It's like there's this kind of you
Mhm.
got to balance knowing that for those kids who are into this is their thing, and this is like as meaningful to them as listening to Wu Tang was for us or whatever, right? So
Mhm. Well, they're still growing, right? So
yeah,
they still need to establish that experience. So, like, I understand that they do want to get into it. It is appealing, it's fascinating. But yeah, get some experience. Like, still be true to yourself, but you still need to establish that experience and that growth. And we
yeah,
all go through that anyway. One thing I'll say about that too is like my kids, they have their favorites in the current era, but I find that a lot of kids nowadays, they're still going back to the 90s now, which is pretty crazy. They're going back to the 90s rap. Like my son, he's listening to like Tupac, and he's listened to like a few songs here and there,
yeah.
Tupac and like other stuff like that, Snoop. I'm like, where'd you hear that? Oh, I heard it on TikTok.
That's where it is now. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I heard it on TikTok, but then it's kind of revitalizing that sound again, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and well,
So
I've had the same experience where my kids will talk about a song, and I'm like, oh, I have the record, and they're like, how do you even know what this is? And it's like because it
yeah,
came out
exactly.
20 years before you're born. But I think that this is kind of maybe part of the reason why music is so strange these days, just as like a art form, is that I think everyone has access to everything all at once, which is great. I mean, you can find a song from
Mhm.
the 40s, a song from the 80s, a song from the 90s, a song from 2022, but it's all presented on the same platform. So there's no real concept of like a
You
timeline, right?
talking about that Kate Bush song, like the
Well,
Stranger
that's a
Things
great
thing?
example. I wasn't thinking about that,
Yeah,
but for sure, right? I mean,
yeah,
kids are hearing that and they think it's to them it's as new as something that came out last week. Like they don't have
yeah.
a concept because it's all presented all on
I
the in
was
this.
bumping that for a little bit
It's a
actually
good song,
because yeah, it
but
is. It is.
but it's just weird like that becomes a big thing all of a sudden because it's just like it's not they don't recognize the kind of uh trajectory of how that where that was in history and then what came after and
Mhm.
what came before it and how it's kind of influenced new stuff. They just hear it alongside whatever the new hit single is by whoever, and it's hard to differentiate. I think
Yeah, it's just coming down the pipeline, it seems. But the era we're in is like information is right at your fingertips, right?
yeah,
So, and plus with the syncing nowadays, like the music syncing, like it's pretty crazy what you could get exposed to. So it's beautiful for children nowadays, or just the kids nowadays, because they could get exposed to a lot of great music. But then also the knowledge aspect isn't there. So that's where we have to come in, try to teach them the knowledge aspect of that, right?
for sure. Yeah, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. It's just interesting to see. One of my favorite things to do lately is watch reaction videos of people who are like 18, 20, and they're watching, like some band that I
That's
loved when I
crazy.
was a teenager, and it blows their minds. Like they can't handle it because
Yeah.
they can't contextualize it. It's just like it's we're in a weird time, but it's cool.
It is a
Um,
weird time.
yeah, yeah, it's very strange. Where do
Yeah.
you sort of see yourself within the local music scene? I mean, I know that there's Winnipeg has this long tradition of hip hop, and there's been like over the years, there's been so many different artists doing different kinds of things. Do you sort of feel like you have a place within the local community where you kind of fit into the other artists that you kind of feel a kinship to, whether you know them personally or not?
Um, I'm still trying to find my place in the local community, if you know what I mean. Like right now, I haven't been doing shows per se. Like I do want to do shows, but I've been focused on like the administrative aspect of things right now. Like once I create a track, I get it registered right away on a few places. Uh, I'll give a few tips. Like I register with SoCan, obviously. I register with Song Trust, that's publishing right there. And then I also register with BDS, so that's for the radio and shit like that. So my main aspect is I attempt to get everything registered and push it to radio right
Yeah,
away. That's my main thing right away, because even if I don't make it or whatever, there's still spins being generated, and there's still something coming down the pipeline. If not for me, then for my kids, because even if it's not popular right now or popping, there's still something that's being created from it, and that's the publishing, right? So I try to get the administrative aspect done. I'm doing everything on my own. Well, everything administrative, like with the beats, I do have a producer that I work with, a couple of them. LJ on the track, and no religion. I can't speak right now either, tongue tied. But I'm still trying to find my place within the local community. Um, I'm just again just trying to grind, trying to get noticed. I do want to do shows, but I'm still trying to find my place and trying to find my niche here in the whole music aspect of things, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
It's really tough trying to do stuff on your own, and it's really tough as a new artist to break out. But again, it's also helps you establish your own path, if you know what I mean. Like there's no wrong way of doing anything. Like if
yeah,
anybody's trying to embark on a music career or music road to or music journey, I guess you could say, just start
yeah.
making music, but be real with yourself and just do what you feel is necessary, because everybody's path is different. So this is the path that I'm taking, and hopefully I can establish myself within the local community a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like you said, it's a hard thing to do, especially in a time when sort of shows are still up in the air. They're happening now again, which is great. But even I mean, 2 months from now, things could change and we could be back on lockdown or something, right? So it's a very
Yeah.
kind of tenuous time for everybody, especially creative people.
Yeah, exactly. But we do have the internet, but again, it can only take you well. It takes money to utilize the internet, if you know what I mean, to its fullest. So that's another thing too. Like I have to navigate through certain, I guess you could say, well, right now there's a market of people who are providing services who rely solely on artists for their income.
Yeah,
So again, you have to actually research these services to make sure that they're genuine, for one thing, and then research them to make sure they have the reach and the demographic that you're looking for,
for sure.
right? Because sometimes people they're just offering the services, and they do the most minimal thing that they can do just to collect from you. So that's something that artists need to be aware of, basically, that particular thing, because I noticed that right from jump, because I was doing blogs and stuff like that, and I was noticing, okay, well, this isn't really doing anything for me. Like it's not
Yeah,
really creating the reach that I wanted to get, and it's not really developing or transitioning into followers. So again, you need to learn how to read your stats, and then research these services, because not all of them are genuine. A lot of them are, but again, you have to. Not all of them are
yeah.
actually. A lot of them are just trying to make some money off of you.
Just like anybody else, they're trying to find a way to get. Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I
Yeah.
think that whole aspect of it, the administrative aspect, that's a good way to describe it. A lot of artists don't have that because they can handle the creative side of things like amazingly well, but then when it comes to marketing themselves and promoting themselves and even knowing where to go, I think a lot of people are just making great music that isn't getting heard because they don't have
Hmm.
that skill set, or that kind of information of where to start, especially
Yeah.
older
It's
artists too, who've been doing this for a long time, and the kind of ecosystem has changed for them. And now suddenly they, when they would have had a label before, now they're doing it DIY, and they got to figure all that out again, 25 years after they did it the first time, right?
yeah. It's a different animal right now, right? It's all a learning process. It's a different animal somewhat, but again, like everything is focused on the audience right now. It's not necessarily the music, it's the
Yeah.
audience and what audience you can create. So I'm just still trying to create my audience, especially in the local community and then in the international community. So that's the focus right now.
So at this point, if someone's hearing this podcast and they're unfamiliar with you, what's the best way to find your music and to hear what you've got out so far?
You can find me everywhere. Like I'm on Apple Music, I'm on Spotify, like all the streaming platforms, Tidal, YouTube. Uh, You can check out my website. It's the label website. It's 96ent.com.
Okay.
Um, that's pretty much it for now, but I'm on every streaming platform that's out there right now. And also like I've linked up with the couple radio stations. Like one is called Good Music. I think that's on internet only though. I
Okay.
think that's overseas somewhere. I'm not totally sure where. It's overseas though. And then I do mess with or fuck with Masterclass Radio. Like if anybody who's an artist right now, they're trying to get radio spins, I would say go to Masterclass Radio, because he's an actual genuine guy. Like he'd actually listen to your stuff. There is an option for them to promote your stuff. You don't have to do that though. Like you could just submit it without doing that option. So I'm
Yeah.
just letting people know that too. and he'll actually give you a serious listen. And if it's good to his ears, he'll put it on there. Like he's promoting Canadian artists.
That's
So
cool.
Masterclass Radio, that's out of Calgary. Yeah, like I'm willing to help people who actually want to create a community and like an industry for ourselves so we could do something here, if you know what I mean, because that's what they do everywhere. Like
Yeah,
look at Bollywood, look at Nollywood, look at even in the States, like they have their own community, I guess you could say. If they create a tour, they'll go to certain promoters, certain people within the industry. We need to create that here. No more of this oh, like I'm gonna make it and you're not gonna make it. We could all make it together. There's enough for everybody. Like I
yeah.
don't understand the mentality. There's a mentality aspect that I think where it's like people don't want to work with each other because they want to be the first to be put on or some shit like that. Like I don't know. I don't understand it. Meanwhile, we all can eat cake.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. Well, I think that it's like people are taking the one aspect of the whole punk rock thing, which is the do it yourself, which is great. But then they're forgetting about the part where you're supposed to be doing what you just said, bringing everyone with you. Like, I mean, not I realize it's different sonically hip hop and punk rock, but there's a lot of connections between there. And as someone who kind of came up in
Mhm.
the punk scene, that was always the best part of it is that someone falls down in the pit, everyone pulls them back up, and like
Yeah,
bands will let some basement bands played one show, they want to be on a gig, someone adds them to the poster, yeah, play 10 minutes at the beginning. Like that attitude I think is maybe missing, and we need to get more of that in every style of
yeah,
music, of just like why wouldn't you want to see someone else in your city do well? Because that helps, that brings everybody up, that brings more ears and eyes on what's happening in Winnipeg, and then that'll turn into more ears and eyes on everybody else, right?
exactly. It creates opportunities for everybody. Opportunities for everybody to grow, opportunities for everybody to network, opportunities for everybody to actually get a chance to be heard and resonate with the audience. And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure.